IASD করছে জীবন কেটে বেকারত্বের জ্বালা, চাকরি জীবনের কাটতে জীবন। চলে এসো এই বেলা, চলে এসো এই বেলা, চলে এসো। IASD করছে জীবন কেটে বেকারত্বের জ্বালা, IASD করছে জীবন কেটে বেকারত্বের জ্বালা।
Okay. Hello everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to today's session. First class for CDM. I urge everybody to join quickly so that we can start the class. And whoever is joining, it will be great if you say hello. Come into the chat box and say hello. That'll be great. And then we'll start. So I see only 2 people joining. So I hope everybody knows today's class. And quickly join in, then we will begin our first session for CDM class. This is officially the beginning of hi. Hello, sir. So is it only me and sir? Where are the students? Shahamuddin, Shahid, Bhakti. Hi, Bhakti. Welcome to today's session. Hello, Shahid. Welcome. Also, so I'm the new people who are joining for the first time, because there are a few students which are from the previous classes also. They have introduced themselves previously. So the new people for whom this is the first session, it will be great if you could introduce yourself, your name, where are you from, are you pursuing your degree right now, or you have passed out, you're doing something else, and which college, if you're pursuing some degree, which college, what is your which year of the study that you are right now. Basically introduce yourself, that will be great. Hi Taufik, Otono, all the known names. So happy to see you. Shahana, hi Shahana, good evening. Mofinuddin, Bhakti, hello everybody. Rudro, hi. So we have 11 people. We had 10 minutes, so it's 38, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I'll just wait, and you guys can say in the chat what are you expecting from this session. Why do you want to do this session? Why do you want to learn CDM? What do you know about CDM, or in general clinical data management or clinical research? You can just drop in. Have you ever studied anything, uh, anything about it, aware of it? If you can say that, that will be great for me to know. Hi Bhakti, I have done my MPhil in bioinformatics from Saurashtra University, Gujarat. I'm currently staying in the US. Okay, great. So currently, what are you doing? Are you working or doing some PhD work or anything? And what do you know about CDM or clinical research as a whole? Uh, Adiamo IODG. Hi, I'm not very sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Adiemo. I'm glad that you're here. Good evening. I'm not sure which part of the globe you exactly from. What is the time, if you could say, and if you could say about something about yourself. What do you do? Why do you want to do a course like this? Why are you interested? And what is your background? That will be great. Adi much about CDM and transition into CDM, also know about building EDC. Great. And what have you done so far? Like, what is your background? What have you studied? What are you doing currently? So yeah, you guys continue introducing yourself time to time. I'll get back to the chat and read your comments together. So as of now, we have 13 people in, and we will start the class now. Okay. So welcome everybody in today's class. I'll bring in my slides. Kaji Rakibul, good evening, ma'am. Good evening. Rakibul, not working right now. Want to know more about CDM? I don't have know exactly what's coming it. Okay, fine, not a problem. Shahana, ma'am, I've completed my MSc in medical pharmacology from KMC Monipal. Okay, fine. What are you doing currently, Shahana? And how do you know about CDM? And are you working somewhere? And what are you doing right now?
স্ক্রিনটা শেয়ার করবো
Okay. So we will go into the slides. We'll start the class now. Okay. So you can call me Alex. That's great. Yeah. Hi, Alex. Writing from the UK. I work as an assistant paramedic health advisor. Oh, okay, okay. We had a talk a while back. Yeah, you had a talk with my husband. I'm in PV right now. In 10 months, want to change my career into CDM. Okay, that's great. What is your name? It's some words I'm not able to. Is it Priyanka or I'm not sure. The last person that who is saying she's in PV. So can you please write down your name also? Then it will be good for me to understand. Um, and also maybe later on you can tell why do you want to transition from PV to CDM, because PV is also a good field to work on. And definitely if you want to change into CDM, that's not a problem, you can do that also. But then we'll continue reading the messages later. We'll start now. Okay. So hello everyone, welcome to our today's session once again. So I'm Pratiksha. Okay, hi Pratiksha, welcome. So I'm starting this with this slide. So yesterday I had an opportunity to, attend a session on. There is a company called Lenders Health here. It's a digital, biotech company coming up. It's a startup, and they were hosting an event. So in UK, you have a lot of networking events. Companies do many forums. They organize such events. There are panelists, there are other people, important people, who come and join and discuss what is happening into the industry, what is new. So this is this Lenders Health company. Why this is related, I'll come back to that later. But for the beginning, because I was it was a very nice experience for me to went there and to go there and listen to, get to see and hear from leading people in the industry, what is happening in the industry, because it's an ongoing and emerging industry. There is always something new that is happening. So it is great to be, updated and know what is happening in the industry, what's new, what is the technology integration that is happening. So overall, it was a great session that I have attended yesterday. And they are as they work in the digital aspect of clinical trial and bringing in new things, so they are um, taking a training session and introducing a training session. So they wanted to let people know more about it. So it was a great session that I had attended. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And then we will move to our slides. Okay. So now we want to know about clinical data management. Before that, we need to know what is clinical research. Although the people who have attended my previous session, we discussed briefly about clinical research and what are the roles within clinical research, on clinical trial, to be more exact, that are available and that we can go for and apply for. So today, the clinical research overview, I'll give a little more description to it, and then we will move to CDM. So today's session will be overview of clinical research and clinical trial, and some basics of clinical trial, some important terms, some important concepts that we need to understand before we get into the technicalities of it. So to begin with, first we have to know why do we do clinical research, and where this concept came from. Okay. So there is always a start of something, like there is always a first of something, right? So where all this started. So there is a guy called James Lind. um, he was he was a clinical guy. So he used to do all this medical and clinical things back in the days. So more than 275 years ago, when British Navy used to travel through seas, and then when British colonization was happening, and there was no other vehicle by which you have to sail. So during the sailing time used to be a longer period of time, and whatever nutritional and whatever food that you are taking in, so you can collect and get your food so much. It's like there used to be a lot of deficiencies inside the navy people. And because of those nutrition deficiency, they used to have bleeding gums, weakness, and that could eventually lead them to death. So the James Lind used to he was a Scottish doctor, and then he used to travel with them, and he noticed this, and all these symptoms eventually led to a disease called scurvy. Okay, so this was a very prevalent disease during that time, and these were the symptoms. So James Lind associated these symptoms with vitamin C deficiency, and then he suggested that if they consume citrus fruit, so then it will help them recover from their vitamin D deficiency, and then they can get relief from scurvy. So he was the first one. He is called as pioneer of clinical research. So he was the first one to see and experiment. I'm sure that time was not this streamlined and organized, but he in his own way tried to give other people this citrus fruit, and then he noticed that this is helping them come overcome the deficiency and the symptoms. So this episode can be called as the first clinical trial in medical history. So so by this story I wanted to tell you that the clinical risk, so there are different what do you call, there are different symptoms that are there, and you have to study them, and whatever medicines in today's modern age that we are taking. So uh, we cannot blindly give it to them, the people. So we need to test them, we need to check if it is working or not. If we need to yeah, so we need to check them, and we need to research on them, and then gather information and see if whatever medicines or remedies that we are giving for any difficulty that a human being is having within. So and whatever medicines that we are giving to them, whether it is working or not, and most efficiently, whatever benefits it is giving to you, if it is harming you or not. So all these things needs to be taking into consideration. So that is why clinical research is very important. So we will go to the next slide. Yeah, so yeah, so clinical research is a branch of healthcare science that focuses on studying human health, disease through well structured investigations such as clinical trials and other. So the purpose of clinical research is not only working through the medicines. There are other avenues of clinical research where through the research of the clinical data, we get to know other informations, we take out other informations as well. So clinical trial is only one part and one avenue of doing clinical research, but there are other avenues, and we seek different other datas, review more other populations and other aspects of the data, and give other conclusions also. So clinical trial is one part of clinical research. Okay, so what here we are saying, it is branch of healthcare science that focuses on studying human health. So the main focus is human health. Whatever we are doing, this clinical data, through this clinical data, ultimately we want to do a betterment of human health and disease. Okay, so either we are experiment a drug, either we are looking out a pattern, either we are doing a preventive measures through the human data that we are collecting through our clinical research. Okay, and well structured investigation. So this is an investigation. So you are taking data from human human, and then you're doing some analysis from their samples, and then basically we are investigating that if there is something wrong, whatever it is showing the parameters, if something might go wrong. Okay, so there are different aspects of it. So this is the investigational approach of a research. And such as clinical trial, its primary goal is to discover new treatments, improve existing therapies, and understand how diseases progress in human body. So, as I mentioned, that there are different avenues. Some are working for the new treatments, some are working for whatever existing therapy is there. So, comparison between them, that if therapy A is working better than therapy B, like that, and understand how disease is progressing, okay, in human body. So by giving them the different medicines, we also uh, investigate whether the disease is getting contained with whatever drug that I'm giving, or it is getting progressed. So progression is shown in many a times in oncology studies. So progression, whether the solid tumor progression, the progression is happening or it is reducing, those kind of aspects are checked in oncology study a lot of time. So these are the aspects that we check in clinical research. And why it is so important? It is a foundation of evidence based medicine. So I can tell you that you go, and if you are having a fever, you go and take a paracetamol. But I should have some basis based upon which I'm telling you. You you might come and ask that based on which data, and how do you know that it will work on me? How do you know that it will make me feel better, right? So I have to have some evidence to show you that, see, I have done this experiment. I have given these many number of patients, and I have seen the results is good, and the fever is actually reducing. This is my basis based on which I am asking you to take this medicine, and it will help you. So this is the foundation of it. So that's the one basic and fundamental reason that why clinical research is done. Every approved drug, vaccine, or medical device has gone through rigorous clinical trial. So another thing is, clinical research is the process through which we get to know what are the doses, effective doses. There could be active ingredients, like if I again take a example of paracetamol only. So when you take a paracetamol tablet, in that tablet there are very many different other ingredients are there to create the tablet format. But then what is the active ingredient in it? That is paracetamol. Okay, so this active ingredients, suppose we say 650 mg in India, that is the adult dose that we say. How do we know that this 650 mg is the optimum dose, that this will affect me? Why not 600? Why not 500? Why not 700? So as in my master's days, I used to study toxicology. There we used to do preclinical, preclinical trial related data also. So where the doses, how it is determined, so the lethal doses, uh, all these things, the basic primary things are tried on animals like rats. Okay, so their trial, after doing some calculation and trial and error, you come to the conclusion that this, maybe you can come to a range that this may be my effective dose, and then you work on it furthermore, because you can't do this trial and error on human, right? So before the human trials come, the preclinical trials come, where we do this trial and error methods with the animals. I know there is an ethics committee there, and this is also, previously there were a lot of other animals which were allowed to participate in preclinical studies, but now only rats are there allowed. And then also you have to talk to the ethics committee, and give them a justification, then what is your study design, and why you are requiring, as whatever, maybe for your study you need 50 rats, so you have to tell them and give them the justification why you need 50 rats. So this is how it is done. So in the preclinical phase we decide broadly a range of dose that will be effective. And why rats? Because physiologically it is considered that their physiological make and our how our physiology works is kind of similar, so we take that in consideration. So the idea is what we were coming in this point: every approved drug, vaccine or medical device has gone through rigorous clinical research. So what is this rigorous clinical research means? So even in clinical trial, the clinical trial itself is a rigorous process, but before clinical trial also there is even more research process work that is done on the animals, and from there you get some input, some results, and then based on those results now you um, create the product and then test it on humans. So this is a very extensive research work that is done uh, through clinical research, which we call clinical research. And the result of doing such rigorous clinical research is what we are today using and getting benefits, be it medicines, be it vaccines, be it medical devices, that that is life altering, life changing. So when we are get going and taking it from a medicine shop, behind this has a very long research work that is included. Okay, so to get these benefits we have to continue doing this research work, and it ensures treatments are safe, effective and affordable for public. So safe, definitely, because when we are doing trials we are collecting the adverse reactions details. We are checking after it is going inside the body how it is working, if it is effective or not. If I'm giving it for a headache, then whether it is reducing my headache or not. If I'm trialing oncology product, then if it is working on my cancer or not, if it is reducing my tumors or not. So we also check if it is effectiveness, it's safe, whether it is safe. And when um, you know you're sure and about the effectiveness and the safety, then depending upon the importance of the drug, uh, you know as it is says affordable, so if it is a life threatening or life altering product, then sometimes government gives you subsidy. And maybe some because all this process and all this clinical research and clinical trial, all this process is very expensive. So if something is very really important, I'm sure everything is, but then there is a degree of severity, as you can understand. Something is little less life threatening than the others. So in that case, maybe government can join in and give some subsidy, and then companies can uh, because everybody, everything, so money is important to run the trial. So whoever is doing all these things, and the companies that they are producing, they are also there is a business aspect of it also. So depending upon the products, they can decide whether how much margin they will keep, and whether it will be affordable to the mass or not. So these are the aspect that is involved in clinical research. uh, so far, do you guys have? I'll just go back quickly to the chat section once. I don't see my long-term career in PV, but I am interested in clinical trials and research, so I want to change to CDM. Please let me know how should I tell my reason to my interviewer. Okay. What did you? Sorry, I missed your name. Uh, Pratiksha. Yeah, definitely. Right now, we will go through the session, and then when we will talk about the interview details and how we should prepare our CVs, how we prepare for our interviews, that time we will discuss all this definitely. And what others? Okay, Fardeen Shubham. Okay, so we will continue. So this is in a nutshell. This is the overview of clinical research and why it is done. We'll go to the next slide. So what is clinical research focuses on? Okay. Um, so first and foremost, understanding the disease and their progression. So when a disease is happening, we want to, if I have diabetes, I want to control diabetes. So before I want to control diabetes, I have to understand what is the disease, what is the mechanism, why it is happening, and then we can look for a solution. Okay, maybe for a lot of cancer research and oncology trials, we have biomarker, these days biomarker approach. So if you understand the disease and its mechanism, then it will be easier for the researchers to design a solution. And suppose if I give you a layman example, suppose there is a bucket, and then from somewhere it is leaking. Okay, there is no point, and you are trying to control the leak. Okay, now if you don't know from which part or which corner it is leaking, then if you, and then with your hands there is a small leak, but it is there, and then it is you are not able to completely fill your vessel because there is a leak. Okay, so to you have to understand where is the leak in, if you want to fix it. Okay, so if you keep you're keeping hand here, you're keeping hand there, keeping hand, but if you don't know exactly where is the leak, you will not be able to help yourself. Likewise, we have to know what is the mechanism of the drug. So most of the people here are clinical pharmacy students, so they have studied pharmacology, so there you see, know how the body works, how the mechanism of action of any disease that is happening. Okay, so that needs to be understood in clinical research, not in clinical trial. So I'm giving you a brief of how the clinical research works, and then I'll come to the trial part. Okay, so in the research, the researchers, they have to understand the disease and their progression, how it is progressing. So why it is happening and why it is increasing, that is important to be known, so that we can create a solution for it. Okay, and also testing the effectiveness and safety of new drugs or treatments. This we have discussed before, that we definitely have to, so whatever drugs and molecules that we are coming up with, it has to be effective and effective enough to give you a benefit, otherwise it's of no use. And even though if it is effective, if it is causing you, if giving you one benefit and giving you 10 other reactions, that is even more life threatening, that can also not be working. So it has to be effective as well as safe for the user to use. Okay, that is the second focus. Third is comparing new treatments with existing ones. So in the research field, um, comparing new treatments with existing one is important, because when you know s- diseases like cancer and even more other life threatening, in cancer it happens a lot. Maybe you have also known, people have told you that don't take antibiotic, you can grow you can have it will be resistant and it will not work in future. So many a times the medicines, the molecules, they might, like if you're continuously taking those medicines, it might create a resistance in your body, and after a certain time it might not work. Like whoever in this group, if you guys do exercise, whether gym, yoga, anything, you might have heard from your trainers and some other people to say that if you continuously, suppose you're trying to lose weight, okay, and you are doing a certain regimen of certain number of types of exercise, it will affect your body, but after a certain point your body will get habituated with those exercises, and it will not show that much difference like it used to be showing initially. So you have to change your regime so that it affects your body even in better way. So likewise, the treatments, the medicines also, if for when it is a critical situation like antibiotics, for medicines in oncology, many a times the patients gain a resistance. So that case you have to go for an alternative therapy. So for that you have to keep on innovating and checking and doing research so that you can come with another options. And also you have to compare that, whether suppose you are using a drug one and which you have grown resistance, so you have to compare between drug A and drug B also, whether after the drug A is going resistant, whether the drug B is working or not, whether the drug A is overpowering drug B, or whether the benefits of drug B is more than drug A. So all these cross functional checks also needs to be done in like comparative research that needs to be done in existing ones also. Or maybe I can give you another simple example also. Many a times, when we go and purchase medicines, especially in India, we have the liberty to go and get a lot of over the counter drugs. So many say, get a crossing, many say go get a dolo. Okay, so these are the company names, but these are all the forms of paracetamol. Now these days we say that no matter what is the brand, you have to focus on the generic name. If it is paracetamol, doesn't matter if it is dolo, doesn't matter if it is crossing, you can take it. Now how can you claim it? Because both are getting prepared in with different companies, and the composition might differ. So to be on a safer side and do claim that a dolo and a crocin will help you or be effective if like similarly, so for that also you have to check and do a research and collect data and be sure that both, if it is paracetamol, no matter whether it is dolo or crocin or anything else, any third number, it will effect on you definitely. Okay, these days if you notice that doctors, they are advised that you write the generic name, because many a times some brands, because maybe doctors are inclined to some brands, or he is following some brands or associated with some brands, but then it is not available in the market at that point, but maybe in your locality. So in the same even if it is not the same brand but the same generic name, then you can take it. Okay, so when you are claiming that only the generic name will do, for that also you need evidence that yes, a company A or company B, no matter how what the name they're taking on how they're making, if the component is the same, then it will affect me similarly. Okay, so for blindly give you this how do I say, not blindly, that will be a wrong word, to give you this assurance that yes, if you take for a doctor to give you this assurance that yes, the generic name will do, for that also you need evidence that there is no a little small difference also will be there, and you can take it without any hesitation in your mind. So for that, comparing new treatment with existing ones is important. Next is identifying risk factor and preventive methods. So yeah, so as we are checking whether it is safe or not, so we are checking the risk factors also and the preventive methods also. So that is also very important. And I think this name is coming. I'll just read it out. It involves collaboration between researchers, clinicians, sponsors, regulatory bodies, and patients. So this, by now you must have understood that this is a, you know, in Bengali we call it jogo. It's a big affair, okay? And then we need a thousands people from different disciplines to come together and make it a success. Not only one, it is a team effort. And not one category of people can make it a success. So we you have to have uh, researchers, we have to have clinicians, we have to have sponsors. Researcher will do the research work, clinicians will be on the side when the clinical trial is happening, they will handle the patients. Sponsors like Novartis, like J&J, like Roche, Amgen, who will be giving you the money to give, run this massive affair. Also the regulatory bodies who will approve after you are doing everything. There will be somebody, you can't do things on your own and say that okay, I have tested this drug and it is now ready for the market. There will be somebody who will regulate all these things, who will give you approval, and then only you can use your medicines. So that, and of course the patients on which we will run all this like tests. Okay, so there is a host of people who is involved in this whole process. Now I think I need to replace this. Yeah. Once we are done with this clinical research part, then we will take a gap and ask if you have any questions. So if you are having any question along the way, I'm not stopping because it will disrupt the flow. So you make a note of it. I'm sure everybody is sitting there with a pen and paper and not only with their bare hands, because there is a lot of information that I'm sharing and I will be sharing. There are a lot of concepts that I'll be describing. So I suggest you please bring a pen and paper and please write it down. Whatever that you are, maybe the topics, if you have any doubt, definitely you can go back later also and ask me questions. But if you have any, if anything is arising, because for many it is very new, and there are a lot of new information that I'm giving out. So if you have, you make a note and then you can ask me. Okay, so after I finish this part, I'll come back to you, and if you have any question, if you have any question, you can ask. So now we will see that we got to know why clinical research is important, what is the main aspect that they look into, why it is done, why it is important. Now we will have a look of the organizations that conduct clinical research. There are multiple category of organizations who can run a clinical research. Okay, so we will go by one by one. First is pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies. Okay, so pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies, they develop new drugs, vaccines, and biologics. Okay, so they can be the one who is organizing a clinical research. Example could be Pfizer, Novartis, Biocon, Novo Nordics, Roche, J&J, and these kind of the names that we know, the pharmaceutical companies and biotechnology companies. So medicine is not only the one which needs clinical trial. For vaccines, like everybody now we know, for COVID vaccine, the trial was happening. So there are thousands other vaccines that we take, and so those things are also needs to be tested. Clinical research needs to be done, clinical trial needs to be done. So that also happens. So on also like pacemaker, like you have glucometer, there are a lot of medical devices that are in use. For that also we need to do trials. Okay, so pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies are one category who does this clinical research. Second is contract research organization, which is called CRO. So the clinical trials outsourced. So this pharmaceutical and biotechnology there are some biotechnology companies and pharmaceutical company who they themselves have their drug delivery and they create the molecule, and they also have a facility of their own where the clinical trials they do their own. For example, Novartis have their own, Pfizer, J&J also, but then some part they also outsource it to other organizations like contract research organizations, CROs like IQVIA, Paraxil, Seniors Health, like this. So they create the drug, but then they do not do the trial. So these CROs, uh, they become the client for those CROs and they hand it over to them, and on their behalf, CROs uh, continue with the trial process. Okay. Next is academic and research institute. So there are a lot of colleges. Most of the colleges, medical colleges, they also run clinical research and clinical trials. So universities and medical colleges conduct initiated studies. Okay, so the length and the depth of the studies might be small. They might be running a smaller size of study, or maybe phase 1 studies, not because they have limited resource, not as big resources as pharmaceutical companies or CROs have, but they are also in academic and research institutions also conduct these researches. So AIMS India, Harvard Medical School. In UK there are plenty of colleges, King's College, Queen Mary College, and then Oxford, Cambridge. All these colleges, universities, they also have clinical trials department, and there also the lot of trials are running. Okay. Next is hospital and clinical sites. So hospitals and clinical trial sites, they individually don't do it, but they are a part of it. So they serve as trial locations for patient recruitment and treatment. So they are a very important part of the trial process, because hospitals, as we call them, sites, they are only the recruitment happens, and the trials run through the hospitals. So hospitals are very important, uh, institution during all this clinical research and clinical trial process. Next is government agencies as public health institutions. So there are some trials that is done privately. There are some that can be done from government's intervention also. So conduct or sponsor public health focused research. So there are a lot of funds for clinical trials and life sciences that also come from government also have a life science and research budget. Everywhere, all countries, they do have some budget, more or less depending upon the country, and they also allow, they put their budget mostly on the academic and research institutes, and they give the grants to uh, you know go through, researchers can continue, they give the stipends and all this, whatever, what are the, whatever institutions that we have, the PhD scholars, they are doing the research work, so they get their grants from government. So government have a budget also to support these guys. Okay, so this is an overall sum of the organization where clinical research can happen. Now, uh, types of clinical research, as I mentioned. I'll just minimize myself a little so that the slide is visible. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, clinical trial is one category of clinical research. Priyanka Ghosh. Hi, Priyanka. Full form of ICMRM. Okay. I will come to your. I'll take your questions later. I'll just complete first. So as I mentioned, the clinical research is um, clinical trial is only one part of the clinical research. There are other category of clinical research also, which provide different kind of information. So we will look into them one by one. So first is your treatment research. Treatment research is to test new treatments like drugs, therapies, and surgeries. What I mentioned all this while, that when you are testing a new drug or a therapy or a vaccine or a device, that part of the treatment, that part of research is treatment research, which comes under clinical trial, comparing a new drug, for example, clinical trial comparing a new cancer drug versus standard chemotherapy. Okay. Now second is prevention research, so to find ways to prevent diseases or their occurrence. The example is study of a new vaccine to prevent COVID-19. What does this mean? So like the vaccine, when we take a vaccine, what we are basically doing, that we don't want to have a polio, or want to get um, COVID-19 virus to affect us. So we are protecting ourselves beforehand. Okay, so it's a preventive measure that we are taking so that later on we don't get the disease. So for that also, these kind of study also happens, where we are researching the preventive kind of a research, where we can through our research we can say that if we do this and stop it beforehand only, we will not get the disease. So this is called preventive research. Now, diagnostic research. Diagnostic research to improve diagnosis of disease or conditions, comparing MRI and CT scan effectiveness in detecting brain tumors. So, these days it is, the testings and, diagnosis is goes hand in hand with all the tests. Without the tests, we can't diagnose what is actually happening, whether it is MRI, it is a CT scan, X-ray, and many other tests, right? So for that also we need to, how do I say, you have to standardize these tests also, so that you can rely on them. Because if you are doing an X-ray, how do you know it is effective? So that is also, so in today's day and age, we have we have crossed all this path and come to a position where we are getting this exact results, and we are relying on those results, and then and the diagnosis. But to come to this phase, and to know that whatever result that it is giving us, and it is affecting effective, and then we can do our diagnosis based on this. Because many a times, I'm sure you have heard that maybe you have done a test from somewhere, and then you are not very, blood sugar, it is showing a lot high, or BP, and you are like, okay, let's take a second opinion, let's do it from some other, and then compare. So this is only the diagnostic, and this is only the research. Just a moment. Something happened to my restream. Just a moment, huh? Oh, give me a moment, guys. I'll just stop sharing and reshare, maybe.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, we are back. Just a moment. Hi, Shotyajit.
Not done.
Yeah. Yeah, we are back and we will continue. Okay. So where were you? We were at diagnostic. So to see the effectiveness of those machines also, and the process also, that needs to be research based again, because you can't blindly rely on any instrument. So that also comes from a lot of research. So that category of research would be called as diagnostic research. That can also be done. Screening research, to find the next is screening research, to find the best ways to detect health conditions early. And the example will be research on whether regular mammograms reduce breast cancer mortality. So what does that mean? So what happens, like I can give you an example. In the UK, not every government follows this, but you know generally it is encouraged to do a full body checkup yearly. Okay, so people say that if you are if you are a healthy human being, you should always go to your dentist once in a year, go do a eye checkup, and then other parameters in your body, an ECG, some blood test, everything is fine or not. So this is a preventive measures, this is a screening test. So I can give you an example. Like mammogram is a test where it can tell you if there is a what do you say, if there is a gene which cause the breast cancer that is present or not. Like in the UK, from government, every woman needs to take a screening test where they will take you through a test for cervical cancer, and they have their parameters and gene. If that particular gene comes positive, uh, that doesn't mean that you have the cancer, but that you have the probability or likelihood of having maybe developing cancer, cervical cancer later. So if it is coming positive, then those women, they keep a track and make them take the test every year. If it is negative, then every 3 years they will again repeat the test. So this is a screening. So they are screening the people and finding the more um, the people who can have the chances of having the disease more likely, and keeping them in watch. So that the smallest, if something is wrong happening in your body, and you don't do it, check it for 10 years, and then suddenly one fine morning something is happening, that is bad. And if you are constantly keeping a check on yourself, and maybe this year you have done, and then next year if you see there is a change, then the gap between you have known that there is something wrong is quicker, and then you can take an early action. So that is very important. So these kind of research also happens. These are called screening research. Okay. So for cancer, this is done for the diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all these autoimmune diseases, nervous diseases. So they develop very slowly, dementia. So if you keep the patients, maybe you have a case in your um, family, so you can keep checking and keep a track of things, so that you are aware what is happening, and if there is a smallest change, because there are diseases who affects you slowly, and one day they become big. So if you keep a track, then maybe you can manage it better. So for these reasons, screening research is important. Genetic research, again, these are similar kind of research, which these are preventive researches to understand the role of genes in diseases, like study of BRCA genes mutations linked to breast and ovarian cancer. So how it is so I have worked in clinical trials on ovarian cancer and breast cancer, where these genes, so if remember initially what we spoke is you have to understand the disease and do the diagnosis so that you can prevent it better. So um, in the cancer therapy there are gene therapies also. So if you know which particular gene is affecting you, then you can isolate or particularly specifically um, more targeted approach to your treatment you can create. So that is why this genetic research is very important for different different diseases. And then if you identify the exact genes, the particular problem that you are facing, and maybe the particular gene is creating the problem, then you can these are called targeted therapy. So you can just because when it is chemotherapy or radiation, so when a radiation is given along with your bad cells, there are a lot of good cells also which get affected and get burned. So if you know that which gene is causing the problem, then if you can target only that, then you can leave out the good ones, healthy ones, and then the damage will be less and the recovery chances of recovery will be more. So in that cases genetic research is very important. Okay, so also the epidemiology is the meaning of epidemiology is uh, trying to know what is happening, a pattern in a wide range of people, different race, different different kind of different population, male, female, different age. So that is called epidemiology. So epidemiological research is also important, maybe more in public health, to understand, to study disease patterns and causes in populations. There are diseases which could be location specific, maybe one part of the globe, they are due to some environmental problems, due to some what do you say, due to some environmental issues or other issues, they're getting some problems. Or maybe some a population of people who is drinking more, so that is also an epidemiology. Male, female, older women, younger women, older men, younger men. So that is also a population. Okay, and then western, eastern. So this is also a bigger population who can smoke, who can uh, drink. And they, if you are researching on how smoking habits relate to, because they say don't smoke, it might give you cancer, don't drink, it might give you cancer. So how do you know that this is associated with, now it is a proven fact, but somebody proved it, right? Somebody associated smoking with cancer, that if you're smoking, whatever you're inhaling, that is affecting certain part of your body, and it is altering something in your body, and slowly it is taking you into that bad disease. So all this kind of work is called epidemiological research. Next is observational research. So you have to, mm, not always you are inventing a drug, not always you are identifying a gene. Sometimes you're just observing. So to observe outcomes without intervention, because observation is very important. If you're observant about something, if you're a good observer, then you can learn a lot from the surroundings. So long term heart disease study tracking lifestyle factors in populations. How do we this is an example. So how do you know? So as they say, if you are fat, if you're obese, um you might, that might you know give you a bad health, heart health. If you're stressed, working, staying up for night. So all these lifestyle factors maybe. So how do you relate this? So you have, somebody is doing that work also and relating all these factors and observing. Maybe here there is no intervention of a disease, medicine, or maybe not intervention of any, how do you say, any procedure. They're not testing you anything, but they're observing you. Maybe a group of group of healthy people, so-called healthy people or normal people that you are taking in your study, and then studying their patterns. If somebody is more stressed, if somebody is more fat, if somebody is more workaholic, so all these working hours are more. So if these things are affecting some way in your health or not, so this is purely observational kind of approach, but this is also a research, and all this information also helps in deduce health important important judgments about your health. The last is quality of life research. So these days, a lot of previously in our parents generation, they were more about you have to eat well, but then what you are eating, conscious eating, focusing on your exercising, they were not there. These days it is more or more there. So life's the quality of life research is also there, where you can say by doing the um, gathering the data, that if you're doing yoga, if you're doing exercise, you're eating healthy, eating clean, all the nutritionists, they will tell you this much protein you have to take, you have to do this carbohydrates and all those stuff. So this is also a kind of research that you do, and then you come to the conclusion that if these are the things that we do, then it will lead to a good health. So overall, health is wealth, and to protect our health, we have to first, so if we go from bottom to up, we have to know how we have to maintain a good health. For that, we need to aware what should we eat, what should we do, what kind of exercises we do, and then we also need to observe that what we are doing, what activities we are doing, and if it is affecting our health in any way, and then the other stuffs also. So overall, this is the type of clinical research that generally is done in the field industry. Okay, so so far these are our slides for clinical research. If anyone have any question, I'll just take a pause for a moment here and ask you guys if you have a question. I had a question before from Rudro, I guess. Full form of ICMR, and just a moment, give me a moment. Yeah. So full form of ICMR and an NIH. For now, Rudro, I'll definitely give you the full forms, but moving on, I would like my students to work on their own and do a Google search and find out the full forms themselves. So ICMR is Indian Council of Medical Research, and NIH is National Institute of Health, which is in US, and it is a primary medical research agency. Okay, so no question is a stupid question, but yeah, and I also definitely want you to do this practice where you are also involved, and trying to get to know what is what. Definitely the full forms, I can give you the importance, but yeah, thank you for asking your questions. Anything anyone is having, I would like to address them. If not, then we will move to clinical trial. We'll take a 1 minute break here, and then we will continue. Okay, so this is your chance. If you have any questions so far, we will get on it, or else I just take a quick break, and then we will continue with the clinical trial.
IASD করছে জীবন কেটে বেকারত্বের জ্বালা, চাকরি জীবনের কাটতে রিবন, চলে এসো এই বেলা, চলে এসো এই বেলা। দিনকাল একদম ভালো না, চাকরি আজ খুবই রেয়ার, প্লেসমেন্টের দায়ভার আমরা তাই করছি শেয়ার। IASDর হাত ধরে হবে তোমার প্রথম রিক্রুট, তাই সব টেনশন যাও ভুলে জীবন এবার হবে রিবুট। IASD করছে জীবন কেটে বেকারত্বের জ্বালা, চাকরি জীবনের কাটতে রিবন। চলে এসো এই বেলা, চলে এসো এই বেলা। ইংরেজি টেকনোলজি ভয় পাও বুঝি, হবে এবার সোজা। যাবে কোথা খুঁজছো বুঝি, এসো এখানে শেষ হবে তোমার খোঁজা। IASD করছে জীবন কেটে বেকারত্বের জ্বালা, চাকরি জীবনের কাটতে জীবন। চলে এসো এই বেলা, চলে এসো এই বেলা। জব গ্যারান্টি সার্টিফিকেট সবই
Well, we are back and we will move to the clinical trials. Okay. So, as I mentioned, clinical research is a part of clinical trial is a part of clinical research where we study about the new drugs, what is getting evaluated. So, clinical research is a research study. Clinical trial is a research study conducted to evaluate the safety, effectiveness, and potential benefits or risks of a medical intervention, such as a drug, device, or therapy in human participants. So this is nothing new. I have explained it to you previously also, that we want to know if it is effective or not. Whatever the drug, vaccine, or device that we are talking about or want to test, we want to first know that if we are saying that it will heal my headache, then it should heal your headache. It should be effective enough to give you relief on your headache. So that's effectiveness, basic. Now, if it is healing my headache, but it is giving me stomach ache and thousand other things, that's not acceptable. So whether it is, if it is harming me, it is affecting me on the headache, but it is harming me in other way, that is not acceptable. Okay, so that is not a solution. So it has to be safe also, that if it is saying that it will cure my headache, then it should cure my headache without giving me some other problems. Okay, so it should be safe for me, and it is potential benefits or risks and medical intervention. So these are the main criteria for doing a clinical trial in human participants. So as we said previously, we were in the preclinical stage. We do it on animals, and then in this phase of the trial we do it on human participants. Clinical trials are designed to answer specific questions about how a treatment works in humans, its side effects, and its effectiveness in treating or preventing specific health conditions. So what we see in the study, that how the medicine is working in our mechanism of action. Basically, the pharmacy students will understand that when you do the classifications of the medicines, you also study how the mechanism of action is. So we also see how the drug is working in your body and how effective it is in your body, and is there any side effects. So simple thing, whether it is working, whether it is affecting in a good way, or and whether it is giving us any side effects. So these are the three important pillars of clinical trial. Okay, so the objectives, we will again go through the objectives, quite similar to what we spoke in the last slide. So assess safety. So By doing this trial, we will assess the safety, identify side effects, and determine that the treatment is safe for humans. It is very important for the treatment to be safe for humans. Okay. Next is evaluate efficacy. Test whether the treatment works as intended. So if I want, it is, if it is a diabetes medicine, then I want my medicine to keep my sugar levels in check. Okay, so that is the efficacy that we are looking for. So that is the intended, that is my intention, and it should give me that. So test whether the treatment works for the intended. Next is optimize doses. As we discussed that how the doses are deduced, so doses also find the most effective dose with fewer side effects. Okay, so we need to find out the dose which where we are it is effective and it is helping your body and giving you side effects, less side effects. Okay, compare with standard treatments, because they're, as these are synthetic products, and uh, these are not natural products, right? You are putting it from outside, so there could be some side effects, but then in the overall clinical trial process, the main motto is the benefits should be always higher than the risk. Okay, so there could be some risk because many a times when it is a big disease and a big drug, you really can't you can't claim that there will not be any side effects. There will be some, but then your benefit should be always way higher than the side effects that it is causing. Next is compare with standard treatments. As I mentioned, that we have to see how it performs against existing therapy in case there is a resistance, and we have to check it. And then there are other, you should have options. People are working relentlessly to find more and more options effective. So you have to check whether the previous ones that we are already using, whether the new one is working better than the previous ones, or what are so these are the comparative tests we always do. Next is monitor long-term effects, detect adverse event reactions over time and in larger populations. So that's why the post-market surveillance happens. So when the trials are happening, it is the number of patients that we are working on is very less than when it is actually in the market and it is affecting a huge number of people. So it is not possible in a trial that you might include 2000, 3000 in a phase 3 trial. You might include those kind of, or maybe in a mega trial more than that, 20,000 max. But then when it is in the market, it is affecting a lot, millions and billions of people. So the long term monitoring is also important, and when it is out in the market, that's why in a clinical trial, post surveillance, post marketing surveillance also is done to get the data from an wider audience, that if it is working fine or not, if it is giving you an adverse effect or not. If even one person is getting affected adversely, that is needs to be taken into consideration, because every life matters, and we have to know the information and work accordingly. So yeah, monitoring long term effects is very important, and support regulatory approvals, generate data required for drug and device approval by authorities. So as I mentioned, that we can do all these kind of tests, but then we have to somewhere we have to be regulated, and there should be some rules and regulations that we should follow and abide by. So these are the regulatory authorities where we should be bound to, and by doing all these trials, creating all these data and proofs, and going to the regulatory authorities to by collating all this data, we are supporting the regulatory authorities for them to help us approve the product so that it can come to market and help the general population and get benefit from it. So these are few major objective of performing a clinical trial. Next is phases of clinical trial. So there are different phases in which clinical trial is. Just a minute. There is different phases in which clinical trial is performed, and depending upon the phase of the study or the trial, you know, there is objectives, different objectives for doing the different phases. There are different time frames, and the number of participants that vary also depending upon the phase of the study. So majorly there are four phases here. It is three representing. Just a moment. Yeah, so this is, I have shown a 2 and 3 representation of the phases. So here the phase 1, approximately last from for 1 to 6 months. Phase 2 is from longer, a little longer process, where it can be between 3 to 18 months, and phase 3 can be between 30 to 12 to 30 months. It depends upon the uh, what are the study, what are the therapeutic area. Maybe generally, if it is a complicated disease and a complicated drug, then sometimes the phase 3 time could be a longer also. Generally oncology studies runs a bit longer than the other studies. And we see, let us see how many number of people that is required or expected in all these phases. So generally phase 1 is 10 to 50 healthy participants. So in the first phase of the trial, we first know that how the drug is working in the body. Okay, so to know that, sometimes not necessarily you get the diseased patient, you can also take healthy patients also, to know the effectiveness of the drug, how it is working on the body. And then 10 to 50 participants. I think this representation is not correct here. So for first phase it is 10 to 100. Phase 2 is 100 to maybe 700, 800. And for phase 3 it is from 500 to up to 200, 2000 or 3000 subjects you can take. Okay, for the phase 3 of the clinical trial. And phase 4 is post-market surveillance, where it is a pool of people, everyone who is taking the drug from the market. So it's a wider population that is involved. And so this says the drugs that move to the next phase. So there are plenty of this is a very lengthy process, the clinical trial. And from the drug development to the actually a sub drug coming to the market, the percentage is very less. The number of molecules that gets detected and get tested and continuously passes the phases, as it goes along, the number reduced reduces. That not all the molecules, not all the forms, they are successfully um, get built into a medicine. So maybe if your 100% drug development has happened, and then from there maybe 70% of the drugs molecules that they come into the phase 1, and then from there maybe only 33% moves into the phase 2. And likewise, even that number comes down, and maybe 25% of what they started with comes to a phase 3, because there could be many problems, many side effects, many effectiveness problems, which will stop them from moving further. Okay, so this is a narrow funnel. So it starts with, it's a funnel like structure. The starting point is big, and then slowly it narrows down, and very few products that actually successfully becomes proves themselves as effective also, and then having less side effects also. So the amount of research work is extensive, and the result is comparatively and unfortunately less. But then we have to keep on doing the work, so that uh, the research work should not be stopped. And then if you keep on researching, and then you'll find out some of the products that will be working. So yeah. uh, and this is another presentation. It is telling us a little more widely what it is, what phase is doing what. And here I want to mention one thing, that here I want to mention one thing, that when you are a fresher, or you are going for entry level job for CDM. So these are the informations that you there are other informations like I say GCP guidelines and all those stuff. Those will be coming later. But then these phases, how many phases of the trial, what is done in what phase, and how many people are involved in what each phases of the trial, and all this, and how much time each phases take. So these are very important information that you will get asked in your interview when you are a fresher and giving an entry level interview as a clinical data coordinator or clinical data manager. So these are very important informations, and you should be knowing all these things very nicely, and you should be able to, because they don't expect you to know the processes, but although we will learn them, but then they expect you to know about clinical research, what is it and why it is done. The clinical trial process, why it is done, that you check the safety, efficacy, and the effectiveness of the drugs, and then what are the phases and how about the phases. These should be, you should be knowing all this information. Okay, so phases of clinical trial, this is another representation I wanted to share with you. So as I mentioned, that in preclinical laboratory studies, there we do it with animals. So there the duration is several years, again because that information takes a lot of time, trial and error. I remember one of my projects in my masters. Lethal dose, we have in toxicology, we have, I think in oncology also, you guys know that LD50, that lethal dose 50. So when you calculate on based on some calculations that you have, and then calculate the dose and give it to the the rats, and then that is your starting point when you are injecting the dose. And then 50%, maybe you are working with 10 rats, and then 50% of them is has died, then you know that that is the maximum dose you can use. You cannot go beyond it, because 50% of your subjects are dying with that. That is a very high dose, and you have to come. If you think of it, it is very brutal way of getting to know the information, but that is how science works. And to get better results and to get greater things, we have to do a lot of sacrifices, and this is how we are sacrificing with each with coming days. There are a lot of other interventions that are coming, where we can artificially, through through all these machines and other stuff, we can check the doses, and if you can spare the animals, because it's not ethically correct. But so far still the animal trials happens, and it takes a lot of time. So I have seen, it's my personal experience, I have seen, because we used to take care of the animals like our own babies, bring them from the animal house every day in the morning and feed them, take care of them, and then do experiments with them. I was in a neuro study, so their behavioral aspects we used to check. And then in my own, it's very heart wrenching also to see, the doses were given, and there was a there the PhD scholar who was helping us, he did something wrong in the calculation, and the doses became very high, and in front of our eyes we saw them die. So it's very heart wrenching, and it's very unfortunate to see like this, but then yeah, that's the truth and reality, and for the betterment of human being we have to go through all these things. So coming back to the topic, this is all preclinical, where all this rat rat game goes on, and then ultimately we had to kill them, and then do experiment with their take out the organs. It sounds very brutal, but yeah, this is needs to be done. So we take out kill them, take out their organs, and in toxicology there is a very brutal way of killing them, so that you don't do anesthesia, you just cervical dislocation, so that your drug did not get polluted with the, what do you say, if you're doing anesthesia, then it might hinder with the drug's efficacy. So it's a cervical dislocation method, the way you kill them. It's very brutal, but that's how it is done. So coming back to the topic, preclinical laboratory studies there provide information on dosing and toxicity levels. Okay, so as I mentioned, so this is how we know that that is the maximum dose we can use, and then slowly with other formula and then trial and error, we get to the closer dose that is effective. Next is phase one, where we check the safety, evaluate safety, gather information about how a drug interacts with the human body. So how it is working on the body, that needs to be done. So that needs to be checked. So in this phase, safety phase, phase one, we do that. In phase two, safety and dosing, so further evaluate. So more all the phases we do some common test, and we do have some common objectives, and we have some additional objectives also, um, because slowly we are increasing the subjects, and working on a bigger population of subjects to test whether what we are desiring will be achieved or not. So on phase one, evaluate safety, gather information about how a drug interacts with the human body. Phase two is safety and dosing. Further evaluate the safety. It's a continued process. Safety is utmost important. Minor side effects, check with dose works, dose works best, and check effectiveness. I would say dosing, by now dosing is done. Ever since we are the human trial is concerned, the doses are locked, and then it's given in a specific dose only. We don't experiment with the dose anymore with the humans. Safety and efficacy, confirm effectiveness and monitor safety. So whether it is affecting, if I'm saying it is a diabetes drug, then we should have to check whether it is controlling your blood sugar level or not, whether it is safe for you, if it is an oncology study, whether if you whether it is reducing your tumors or not, that is an effectiveness of the drug that needs to be confirmed, and monitor safety definitely. And phase 4, as I mentioned, that when post marketing safety and efficacy, gather information on the drug's effect in various populations and any side effect associated with long term use. Okay, so once it is out in the market, after third phase we get that approval, and then once it is out in the market, we keep an eye for a larger population for a longer period of time, if any side effect is coming up or not. Okay, so this is the phases of the clinical trial. Next is who all yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Okay, give me a moment. So we are back. So now, as we understand what is clinical, how the clinical trial is happening, there are, as I mentioned before, also in the clinical research, there is a host of people that is required to be involved in this process. So similarly, in the clinical trial process, also we need plenty of our people who will help the trial to, to be executed smoothly. So this is whoever have done my previous class has an overview of these roles. There is a few new ones that I will talk about. So these are the roles that is involved in different part of the way, so that collectively a clinical trial can be done. So first is a principal investigator. Who is a principal investigator? Is the doctor. In the clinical trial, they are called as principal investigator, PI. This person leads the trial, ensure compliance and patient safety. Okay, so he has a very important role to play, because he is in the site and he is in charge of all the patients that are enrolled in this enrolled and for a particular site, where if it is a multi-site, because most of the studies, if it is phase 2 and phase 3, there could be multiple hospital which are involved in the study. These multiple hospitals are called multiple sites. Okay, so every site will have a PI, and that will be a main. And then PI signature is also important for all the documentations, because he is in charge of the entire clinical trial and patient safety and compliance. So compliance is always, you have to you cannot do whatever comes to your mind. You have to follow certain rules and regulatory rules and compliances that needs to be there, which you have to follow. So that is principal investigator. There will be a sub investigator, supports PI in patient care and protocol adherence. So there is sub investigators. Then there is clinical research coordinator, which as I mentioned, I discussed it in previous class, manages day-to-day trial activities at the site. So I'll not elaborate a lot on these topics today, and I would request students who were not there in my previous class to go back and get an idea, because I have explicitly described which role comes where in the picture for a clinical trial, and what is done, and how each and everyone is associated with in between, how a CRC is associated with CRA and CDM. So it's a very descriptive way I have told in my previous class. So I will not go into much detail today. So we need a CRC, so who manages all the day-to-day activity in the site. And then we need a CRA, who monitors the trial site and compliance and data integrity, who manages the CRCs and who sees that if all the processes are happening fine, if the so basically they manage the trial, and they see if the documentation are fine, if the processes are working as they are expected to, as per schedule, if there is any problems, and if there are any the CRCs or PIs are facing any issues, any communication gaps between the other stakeholders, like CDM and then PV or vendor. So they become the glue in between, and they become the facilitator, and they facilitate and manage the trial. The CRAs, clinical research associate. We also have the regulatory affairs specialist, who handles approvals and compliances with regulatory bodies. So regulatory affair specialist, also I have mentioned that the entire clinical trial process, it they need to abide by some rules and regulations, and they are bound by it. So regulatory affairs specialists, they make sure that in each step of the way all the compliances and approvals have been taken. They are compliant to the rules and regulations. So this is the work for regulatory affairs specialists. Then data managers are clinical data managers that we are trying to become after once we are learning from these sessions and apply and hopefully become one. So there, all the data that CRC is providing from the site to the data manager through EDC. I have also explained what is EDC, electronic data capture. This is a platform where through which the data from site comes to the data managers, and the data that they're receiving now, they will analyze, the data managers will analyze the data from the site through EDC that is provided to them by CRC. Okay, and pharmacovigilance specialists, they are the safety guys. So as the safety is a very important aspect of running a clinical trial, so safety first. So all the adverse events that are occurring needs to be reported, and safety is so important that in clinical trial there is a separate group called pharmacovigilance specialist. These groups keeps a tab on all the adverse events and serious adverse event that is happening, and then make sure that it is there, and then communicate with data managers. And so yeah, so pharmacovigilance is another role. And then we will see there are a few other roles also, like regulatory affairs specialist. I think we spoke about regulatory affairs specialist. And then biostatisticians. Biostatisticians are those. So what happens, as I'll give you a run through. So how it happens is, patients come, they enroll into the hospital. Principal investigator is there, they are in charge, and investigator is there to help him. Then the CRC guys and CRA guys, they do the whatever is need to be done, whatever is needful on the site. Then the data is coming, regulatory is looking after the through the health of the study. Their work is not in one space. From the beginning to the end, they have to be looking out for all the compliances and approvals. So that's that. And then the data is coming to the data managers, and they are analyzing the data. So once the analysis is done, so whatever result that we are gaining from this data, so there is pages of data and patient information. You can't really submit it to somebody and get an information. So we have to visualize that data, and we have to represent it in some way. That maybe we have, for an example, suppose we have tested 500 people, and then we have seen that 100 is showing this trend, 100 is showing this adverse events, so like that. So we have to represent our data in a statistical way, through numbers and through charts and diagrams. So that how that we have to represent the data in a diagrammatical manner, so that we can concise our data and submit to the regulatory authorities for them to understand. So yeah, so these are, so for that we need a biostatistician, and they also take be an important part in the data review also. So towards the end of the trial, they also have their parameters through which they review the data. And they also provide you some queries if they seems that there is some inconsistency in the data as per their parameters. They also so they cannot raise the queries directly, so they provide it to the data managers. So data managers on their behalf, they raise the query. So biostatisticians are a very important role in the clinical trial process. So if somebody is studying statistics also, they can also work in clinical trial process. And lab technicians also, they conduct tests and process biological samples. So during the clinical trial process, we have to, so in term, because we need to know what is happening after we taking the medicine, we have to know how effective it is in the body. So for that, outside, looking from the outside, we will not know what is happening inside. So we have to run some tests, we have to draw some blood, and then do some analysis. And then it can be blood, it can be plasma, urine, and others. These kind of biological samples we might take. Might have to do some scans and other tests to see what is happening in the body. So for that, we need some lab technicians. So there are two kind of lab that is involved. So we are called they are called local lab and central lab. So not all what do you say, not all sites and hospitals are well equipped with all the technicalities, or all the machines, all the uh, analysis that you need to do. Your hospital may not be having enough infrastructure for that. So if you have the maybe out of 10, 5 facilities you have in the studies, as in the hospital itself, maybe you can go and do the blood test, urine test, and x-ray, but you don't have an MRI machine in the hospital. So if a patient needs an MRI to check for some parameter, then you have to do it somewhere else. So once you are doing it somewhere else, that is called central lab, where you are from outside you are doing it. And if it is inbuilt in your hospital, the facility, then we call it local lab. So for both, we need lab technicians also to run all these tests. And there are few other things also. uh, just a moment, let me check how much we are left with. Okay, basic concepts. Okay, I think it's quite long, and 1 hour 45 minutes we have crossed. So what we will do, we will conclude our class today here only, and we will continue again from the next, because there are very important for the next slides. There are basic concepts of clinical trial, and also some very important concept for
IASD
clinical trial.
করছে জীবন কেটে
Sorry for that. So yeah, there are very important concept that I'm going to describe later. So I don't want to rush. So maybe on the next class we will go through them, and I'll quickly talk about these a little bit. So there are some others. So as we were talking about the roles that are involved, who all are involved in clinical trials. So these guys that I talked about, they are actively involved. And also there are some other roles also, like sponsors. They provide the funding and resources for clinical trials. So as I mentioned before, like there is a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company, they have come up with a device or a vaccine or a medicine. So they now wants to that their product to be tested, so they provide the funding. So they are called the sponsors, who will provide you the money to for you to conduct, because it's a very expensive business to gather all these resources and run a trial. It's a very expensive business. So sponsors are the one who provides you the funding so that you can continue with the trial. And participants, definitely volunteer subjects who agree to take part on the trial. So unless you find participants all this process and everything, all these everything that you are gathering is in vain. So you must have to have participants. So participants are a very important aspect subjects for your clinical trials. And there are regulatory bodies, there are different regulatory bodies, they like FDA, EMA, and other ones. There are agencies who keep an oversight of the trials. They provide you the guidelines, as per which, following which you have to run your trials, so that there will be, because otherwise anybody can do anything. And when it is a human life is concerned, so you have to be very, very, very careful. So you have to abide by some rules and work on the trials. So regulatory bodies are there to ensure that you are working as per some guidelines. And ethics committee also, the regulatory committees and ethics committees, they goes hand in hand, so that they ensure that everything are done with a rule and some ethical, ensure that the ethical standards are maintained. So we will end our class here, like we will not continue anymore. uh, yes, Rudro, sorry, I did not see your message letter. Why stop? We still want to learn more. Not a problem, you're also eager to learn. Yeah, that's great, Alex. Yeah, so we will continue in the next session again. And thank you so much for all of you. And I can see still 6 people are there. So everybody, thank you so much for joining in and learning together. And we will continue in the next sessions. We will get to know about some basic concepts of clinical trial, some basic terminologies, also some very important process, like very important concepts that is present in the clinical trial. If we understand this, it will be easier for us to understand the other further processes easily. So we will go one by one, and this needs a lot of, it will take some time for me to explain all this to you. So far today we will conclude our class here. um, if anyone having any question, um, you can say it now. And if not, I know it's very late in India, so you can jot down your question and um, give me when you are in the next class, or in between also in the group that we are there, the just a moment, that mentorship batch, we have groups, so you can always pop in your questions there. And another thing that I want to mention, that whenever the next class is happening, in each class, whatever we are learning from the previous class, first 10 minutes, we will do a quick quiz. Okay, so we will do 10 questions, 1 minute each, and then we will start our class. So whatever I taught today, I will create a questionnaire of 10 questions, just a 10-minute business. But then just to because I'm doing a lot of effort in teaching you and letting you know what are there in the industry. So I would also know that it will reassure me that you are equally invested and you are understanding. And it is very important that whatever I am trying to teach you, it is very important that the knowledge is getting transferred to you as well, your understanding. So for that, every class we will do a little recap from a previous class, and then we'll do a small 10 minutes question, the MCQ 10 questions, and then we'll start the next class. Okay, so I hope you got to learn a few concepts today about clinical research and clinical trial. This is, I know, for all of you, many of you, it's a very new thing, and slowly we will build on the information and knowledge. And please stay tuned, and uh, we'll see you on the next class. Thank you very much. If there is any questions, I'll just wait for 2 minutes maybe, and then we will conclude today's session, and we'll meet you on the next session. Yeah. So, if anybody is still interested in clinical research by knowing all of it, and if it is boring, you can tell me. If it is boring, ma'am, tell me. Then ma'am will come up with different ideas uh, to make it interesting, maybe. Or maybe if you want to know something more, if you want me to include something that you wanted to know. Then I will, include that in my material. So thank you, Bhakti. Rudro, and okay, if there is no questions, then we will end today's session here, and we will meet again on Saturday, same time. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night and good rest of the day. Okay, sure. It will be more interesting with examples and case studies, ma'am. Sure, I would like to include more case studies moving forward. And this was more like, the initial ones. So, yeah, but definitely. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Otonu. Hi, Alex. Hope, please let us know how did you find the session so far. And if it is adding any value to it. I know you are doing some work with healthcare only. How does CDM build EDC? That's a very lengthy process, and it's a very complicated one. And once we are into the course one by one, when we are doing the setup phase of the study, of when we will learn about the setup of clinical trial and EDC, then we will be learning that. So we have to hold on for that for a while. We are covering the basic concepts now for now. uh, because here there are a lot of students, and then I have designed the course in a way so that who has no clue about what is clinical research, what is trial, and how it works. So we are covering starting from basics. So we will come to that EDC build also. So if you are yeah. Okay, thank you so much for attending the class. See you on Saturday. Thank you. Okay, bye.